Good morning to one and all present here. I, Rituja Maske, will be moderator for today's webinar. For all, I would like to thank each and everyone for joining today's session. I'm pleased to welcome you all on the behalf of Student Alumni Relationships at VIIT to this webinar, which is organized in association with WAF. The topic for today's webinar is From VIIT to Google. The speaker for this session is Mr. Sagar Bhosle. He is alumni of our college, and he graduated from our college in year 2011. Then he did his master's in software engineering in 2013 to 2014. From there, he did a lot of jobs as software engineer, research assistant, software developer, and now he is an iOS developer of Google Maps. So thank you for taking time out, our being here today. We all would like to learn about you and interact with you. Meanwhile, if any attendees have questions during the session, please type them into the chat box. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Rutuja. So, hi, Sagar sir. I have to address you as sir or with your first name. What do you prefer?
Please, Sagar, just Sagar. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, just diving into the first question for today. It is based on the title itself, VIIT to Google. So, how's that journey been? Can you talk about it?
Sure. So it's hard to describe like that as a journey because it's not like I planned it that way when I was there. But one thing that I always knew is I want to be around computers, and so that was fixed. But everything else was variable until then. And it just so happened that when I was looking, I'd worked for a year or two in India, and then I was looking for a change.
Okay.
So this is when I got contacted by my relatives who live in Silicon Valley.
Oh. Okay.
And so they talked very highly about the place because Silicon Valley being Silicon Valley, it's the heart of software and most of computers.
Yeah.
So that seemed very lucrative at that point. And they were like, you have to at least visit once, if not come here, but I at least visited once. So I did that. I tried that out, and that's how I got into CMU.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more. We'll get into details.
Right.
For that more.
Yeah.
And after that, I worked with Ericsson for a few years. Worked continuing the same kind of work that I did in India. So that was a continuation of it. And then I changed domains a few years ago, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been iOS. But that's like, I think of the journey as a few transitions along the way. And these were the 4 or 5 transitions that needed to happen.
Yeah.
What was common between all of them was that I knew I wanted to continue in engineering. I wanted to do programming.
Right.
And I love playing around with the interfaces.
Right.
So that was the common theme, but everything else, it was just waiting for time and waiting for things to happen and letting them happen.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just you figure it out on the way. That's the main thing, I guess.
Yes. To just go add to that, you will figure it on the way if you give it enough time, of course.
Right.
Secondly, if you're consistently behind one thing, then you won't miss it, basically.
Point. Yeah.
So
yeah. So we'd like to know what is it. What's like a usual day in a Google employee's life? That's the insight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, lately we have been working from home mostly.
Yeah.
So it's a little unusual, the schedule right now.
Yeah.
Since there are no hard work hours, it usually I start my day around 9 a.m.
Okay.
However, it does not mean I jump into work. I check yesterday's pending emails, and I spent an hour making coffee and getting the table ready for work and everything. And after an hour, we start the day. There are a few meetings in the day with the current team members that I work with.
Yeah.
And get done with those. Then there is some work that I have to get done that was allotted.
Yeah.
And then there's a few hours of that. And it's the rest of it is pretty flexible, like essentially like at least at least through work from home times, it's more like kind of back to college life where I eat when I'm hungry, but until I'm hungry, I'm just programming and coding and designing.
Right.
It's just
Based on our free will. That's the thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Follow the free will. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, as long as I get to do good engineering at the end of the day, because that's what I enjoy doing. So the more of that, it keeps me busy. But that's also what keeps me going.
Yeah. That's nice to hear. And like, what could you please elaborate on, like what exactly do you do at Google? Like, what are your duties, responsibilities inside of the domain that you are in? So we'd like to know about that.
Absolutely. So as the introduction said, I am an iOS developer at Google Maps. And what that means is, if you have an iPhone and if you use Google Maps, that's the application I'm talking about.
Right.
And I worked on the platforms team on the Google Maps app.
Okay.
So the Google Maps app is actually maintained by 200 plus iOS other engineers.
Yeah.
And most of those are feature engineers. So they write features and submit these features to the platforms team. The platforms team integrates these features into the main app and makes it ready for the App Store.
Okay.
And does further checks on it, whether it follows all the Google policies correctly and those sort of things.
Right.
I worked with that platform team, where part of my responsibilities are working on the UI too. I work on some user-facing features.
Yeah.
So if you ever seen some Google places will have offers on them. Some will have posts on them. There are photos to a place. So I work on those features around those. And even, as I said, the Google Maps team is about 200 engineers.
Yeah.
A sub team of that focuses on marketplaces.
Okay. Yes.
Which is connecting merchants and end users.
True.
So I work on marketplaces related features on Google Maps on the iOS app for Google Maps.
Oh.
That's like the exact detailed version of what I do.
Accurate, precise. Yeah.
Yes.
So like, did you from Ericsson you went to Google? So did you precisely apply for the iOS developer job, or you get the domain assigned later on?
So yes, all of that typically happens. There's no clear yes or no there. Now, for me, it was slightly different because it was a change of domain for me.
Yeah.
At Ericsson and Persistent Systems, it was more of mobility and embedded systems. And then, so what I started feeling is I worked on those for 4 years. And when you work on software for 4 years, you kind of start to realize things about it that you like and do not like.
Yeah.
About software and about your day-to-day work.
Right.
The parts that I was enjoying were more of on the UI side.
Okay.
And which told me that I want to continue engineering, but I want to move closer to UI side because that's what I relate to the most on the stack. So it was more of a stack change for me. From back end, I started going into front end.
True.
And when I started to go to front end, I wanted to just start using an ecosystem that I can learn easily and start building on easily.
Yeah.
And that's why the choice was iOS, because it's a very closed system. There are less moving parts overall. It's easier to learn, easy to get started with.
Yes.
And so I started learning mobile development just so that, just to see if I like it.
Yeah.
And I started applying to jobs.
Yeah.
Some companies did mention that
Yeah.
that we may not be able to give you an iOS role because you don't have experience in iOS.
Right.
But Google thankfully was not like that. They were like, we don't really care. It's as long as you want and you're ready to learn, it's fine.
Okay.
So like really, I admire Google's culture for that a lot. They're very open and very accepting.
Yeah.
And they were quite open about that role change and domain change. They were like, we will anyway teach you more things when you onboard.
Yeah.
So no matter what engineer you are, as long as you meet, as long as the team likes you, they are happy.
Yeah, that's a very warm culture. Then basically, it's like unlike yours, where it's like filtered basically on the if you are a software engineer, then only come, others don't come. Here it's
I
like
mean, it's hard to generalize like that. Even within the company, every team will have its own culture.
Yeah.
And there's no statement you can make about all the teams or all the managers.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
there's all. I feel
It's a
like
big company after all. You can't just comment on everything. Yeah.
yes. And if you have 100 managers, let's say in the company, it's bound to happen that about 10 to 15 of them will be amazing.
Yeah.
But
Majority.
there are always
Yeah.
exactly, you just have to work with them.
Yeah. So and like you went to Google before that. You were at Ericsson. So how was that like? Like because that domain is typically embedded systems, and I saw on your LinkedIn also. And so like, how was your experience there, and how that helped you in Google?
Yes, so it was a very different domain. What we were essentially doing is selling software for set-top boxes that go into people's house, and then people watch content over it.
Yeah.
These boxes were right before when Netflix went public and Netflix went big. Before that, it was more of cable to cable connections and managing those the content in a very different way.
Yeah. Right.
So these were old boxes that people already had in their houses, and we were trying to upgrade features on that to match the new improvements in the bandwidth.
Yeah.
Because now we have 3G and 5G coming up, so there's more bandwidth available, right? And all the content companies, they pay for time, they pay for screen time, so bandwidth is really important for them. So when there's an improvement in bandwidth, they want to encash it as much as possible. And the team that I worked with had this challenge of keep using the old hardware but adopting new software on top of it.
Okay.
Because because they wanted to be able to use the power of new UI frameworks, but those didn't work on the old systems.
Right.
So one of the things you have to do is migrate your system first and then start using the new platform. So I was part of that migration for a while, which essentially involved something that runs on Windows should also run on Linux. That was the requirement. And we had about 50 plus engineers in that team working on various things. I also interned with the same team, and I joined the same team as my full-time job. So during the internship, it was very different. It was the job changed between that a lot, primarily because the manager also changed. The team got reorged, so those things changed too. But overall, at Ericsson, the role was very embedded focused, and there was it was completely backend, and that's why I started feeling like I'm writing code. It goes somewhere on the servers, where what I want to happen is I write code and it goes in the hands of people.
Yeah.
So that's what I started seeing that this is not working for me anymore, and I started exploring other things like
that's basically like your transition point, that migrating from this.
Yes.
You migrated from that to here. Let's say.
Yes. Yes.
So like the major question that at least third year and final year guys have, like even me, what we have is getting a campus placement first, or gaining industry experience first and then going on for higher studies, or going in a connected way, like I'll just graduate and I'll just head towards my MS. So which one do you prefer at this stage, like at the current stage, the geographical conditions, the pandemic situation that we are facing in? So like what is your take on this? Like, which one do you prefer if you were graduating in current times?
Right. To be honest, it's hard to say anything concrete about that because I haven't been
Hmm.
to India for a year or two, and so I would be making assumptions about the situation there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
worse.
it's um,
Yeah.
but let me try to answer this question with a few factors that matter the most. One is your liking in the industry,
Mhm.
and second is your ability or willingness to take the risk. And
Mhm.
when I say risk, is the financial risk.
True.
So there are these two questions that you have to ask yourself. Another thing is, if you're working in an environment where you feel like you are not being challenged enough,
Yeah.
then that's also a sign that you want to start looking
Hmm.
for other options.
Right.
Now that can happen right after you graduate. That can happen after a year of graduating and then working for a few. In my case, I honestly did not have a clear plan on that. It was when I graduated. Yes, my priority in those 4 years was to land a job, right,
Right.
that pays me back.
Mhm.
So that was a priority, and um, I tried a couple of things for that. Couple of things that I think not everyone tried. I mean, I went out. We didn't have anything like internships at that time,
Yeah. Right.
but I still went to companies and I was like, I can work for free if you want.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just what I want to see is how the team works
Fun.
and learn about how professionals code is written and a professional org works.
Mhm.
So I did that in a few places. I worked for free, um, and my policy was whether going abroad or working here, the choice has to be based on your opportunities.
Yeah.
If there is a good opportunity where you are locally, you have no reason to look for places abroad. Um, However, another factor in that is if you want to learn how software is sold, and how software turns into money and how people earn from software, then it is like Silicon Valley is the hub of it. And here, there are people who have done it 50 times and 60 times, and they are local in the area.
Mhm.
So if you are interested in learning about those things, then yes, that's again something that should incline you towards thinking about masters in US. So there are these few factors that you need to keep in mind. And but as those the first two questions I think are the most two important questions and very most basic, whether you are ready to take the financial risk.
Hmm.
And I call it risk because it's a risk no matter what. I mean, there's no other way to describe it without going case to case.
Yeah.
But it's a certain kind of risk that you have to be willing for, and some willingness to let go the comfort zone that you have
Yeah.
within the same country,
Mhm.
things like those. And the third, your interest in the industry. You have to love the industry if you want to come here, because if you find yourself in a place where you come here and you realize, oh, you actually like something else,
Mm.
then that's like a worse feeling.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid that one. But otherwise, these few factors I would keep in mind.
Yeah. And a lot of people like are afraid to take the first step of like at least giving the GRE, let's say, or thinking about loans, thinking about the cost of living there, and then that's why that's the thing, that it's like a fear, it's a risk, you as you rightly said.
Yeah.
And that risk is kind of like a fear on us, that like what if the situation is, what if this doesn't work out, what if this happens. So
Yeah.
like how exactly that works, like how is it like worked in your case, like the loans, the cost of living and everything, how did you like go about it, and how to go about it generally also.
So let me start answering by cost of living, right?
Yeah.
Now, cost of living is something that is completely dependent. It's a geographical
Right.
metric,
Right.
right? So it depends on where you are. Things will be dependent on the local situation there.
Right.
So the simple answer to that is you don't have to really worry about that. I don't think that's a concern.
Mhm.
what you should, I think, look at is, as long as the software, this Bay Area and the new hot hubs,
Yeah.
like there's Arizona's coming up, and or New York for people who like tech and finance, it's New York.
Yeah.
So or people who like more enterprise kind of jobs, then Seattle is a better choice. If you're into startups, then Bay Area is the best choice.
Yeah.
There are some those factors too. But yeah, you really have to ask yourself which one of those you like more, and then make the right choice. And I didn't really plan it that way. One thing is, I was always on the look for the best opportunity out there,
Right.
whether it will be a job or further education. If it's a job, if I like the job description, I'm gonna join.
Yeah.
If it's an university, if I like the course that they are offering, I'm gonna go there.
Yeah.
So I didn't plan it. I was just ready for the opportunity every day. And whenever they came, you put them in a priority list and start going from there. Essentially.
Yeah. That's nice. Certain misconception that you would like to address about living abroad? Any?
Yeah. Maybe one is that the best technology is in the US. I think that's a clear myth.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And I'm talking about strict IT innovation that is happening. The kind of innovation, like I feel US basically is help. The software in US is great at helping its own economy, but I cannot not notice the amazing UPI and those stacks that India is building.
Right.
Those are only available in India. So there are different kind of challenges both countries are solving.
Yeah.
So it's like also, yes, technology on both sides, but what applications they are being used for, that's really different.
Right. Here the misconception is all the good projects, all the latest technologies in the US, we get all outsourced Java outdated projects. Basically, it's like India is the labor. Basically, India is the labor, and we are getting, the cheap code is coming here. We have to work on that. But the real code is there. It's layered. So for that, you have to work. That is the common misconception that is prevalent here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I mean, I had the same misconception years ago. But however, we should also think about, if not some secret algorithm or secret code, is there something that is unique, which is happening here, because of which startups, happen at the rate at which they happen here. So some things there I have thought about. The technology doesn't have too much to do with it. It's, I think, just the organizational skills and the art of selling people, and knowing your crowd really well. That all happens on a very concentrated basis here, because all the people who make software and people who are called early adopters, who are going to use that software, are also local here.
Yeah.
So they help each other build that. It's an ecosystem that grows. That culture takes time to evolve, and it needs software focus.
Right.
So Silicon Valley is doing it. In India, I think India, Bangalore is doing it. Pune and Mumbai are doing it. But it needs to happen more. I mean, it will happen, but there's definitely a difference in the rate.
Right. Exactly. So and also, like, one thing is, like when you applied for CMU, how did your profile look like? Like what was your profile look like? Like basic, it's like a because you have to stand out, because so many people might be applying and you have to stand out.
Yes.
So how did your profile look like then?
So my GRE score, we had the new format, and it was 316.
Okay.
And
really
my
316.
I
fine,
think
but 300 plus is a good score.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And my TOEFL score was about 108, I think. So I checked if CMU has that. I'm over that limit or not. And CMU required, I think, 100 on TOEFL, and I think 310 on the GRE.
Okay.
So those criteria matched. The next thing was this specific course at CMU that I enrolled in. It was about entrepreneurship and more of software management than software engineering.
Okay.
So that was something that helped me too. I really connected well with the course content, and I really wanted to do that. And I think when you know what you're going for, you're not concerned about the unknowns that will come up. You'll be like, whatever happens is you'll see it when it comes. So yeah,
that's exactly, and how was the campus life? How was your campus life over there? Like, how was it exactly? Your struggles, maybe first time in the United States and everything. We'd like to talk about that.
Like the struggles, or did you?
Yeah, the struggles.
There are a few. There are cultural struggles, and there are technical struggles, and there are language struggles, and and at the beginning, all of those come together. It is very, very common for people to break down in the first few weeks. It happens to everyone. It's just a cycle you have to go through at least once. That happens. The thing to do there is be open and be accepting of everyone, and let them also accept you as you are.
Right.
It just takes time, but you have to do it. And the culture here is such that they're very accepting of everything, very open. So it's I think up to the new person that comes in. They also have some responsibility of making sure that I also fall in place.
Yeah,
that's the cultural part. There are struggles there, which I think are continuous. Language makes some difference too. For the first few months, it's like a struggle understanding what people are trying to say. You go to a different Starbucks, and there are. I remember I was to Starbucks giving my orders at Starbucks. It was because it's a complete new country and completely new accent, right? It takes a few days for the cultural hit. That happens, and then there's a technical difference in the way people work there. For example, in India, I at least when I worked in India, it was a lot of you would say sir and things like that. That does not exist here. It's like you call everyone by their first name. So even if like Sundar Pichai walks over, you would call him Sundar, not sir. So and he's so I haven't met him yet. I haven't met him. I have. So we get to kind of meet him every Thursday. Every Thursday he meets in person with all the employees. There's like an open house, and there is free food and everything right there. It's available, so people have food. People sit there, if not to listen to what he's saying, at least for the food. It's a big hall. It's filled, and every week they also celebrate about 200 new engineers that join Google that week. So on an average, there are about 200 engineers who join every week.
That's really great number.
It's like a huge pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you heard truck companies, right? It's
yeah.
Exactly like that.
Nice analogy there. I like it. Yeah. So, and also the main thing being, how's the work while you learn culture over there? Like, because see, the thing is, if I want to join, let's say CMU, if I want to join, there are things that like passive income. There should be a passive income there while you're studying. Just to add a few more dollars up your pocket. So how's that thing over there? How does that thing work over there?
So all colleges have some kind of way for international students to earn.
Yeah.
What kind of jobs are available, you can find on the website of the university.
Right.
And just ask the current staff there. They will happily let you know.
Yeah.
But the university will make sure that you have enough resources to be okay there. One is they, and I'm not sure about the new visa process, but they will also, the visa process also makes you go through some financial criteria and everything.
Yeah.
So by that process, by the end of that process, you yourself would have made sure that you have enough planned as at least.
Yeah.
So that helps, and it's certain, but it's certainly part of the risk, overall risk, right? And you have to look at these things as something, a jump that you're making, right? And with every jump, there is some amount of risk involved. So you essentially, there is a process that you strictly follow. You just follow that process, and it happens. It happens in 99% cases.
Yeah, basically, it's like trust the process, and the process will pay back. Basically.
Yes, exactly. Trust the process for sure. Yes.
Yeah. The next question being placements at CMU. Most people have this question that most people have this misconception. This is one of the misconceptions that the placement are like what it happens in India. Like you have a coding test, and then you have to pass this apti round, and there are a lot of huge number of people applying. Your chances are really less, but you're still trying. That hope at least. So, but which is not the case that I know. But would you like to clear that misconception? How were the placements at CMU?
Yeah. So CMU, Silicon Valley, is the campus that I was in. CMU has a main campus in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, right.
So the campus in Silicon Valley is not the main campus.
Right.
Now that being said, it was a situation like we kind of had to go out here and look for jobs.
Okay.
The good thing here is that meant just going around the street here, because Bay Area has so many companies that you can walk on a street and you will cross 50 companies.
Yeah, that's a great number.
Yes, and I'm not exaggerating that at all.
Yeah.
There are literally streets where you walk for 10 minutes and you would have crossed at least 7 to 8 big startups. So the process literally goes like you have a few options. You either go in person when it's not COVID and it's not lockdown.
Yeah.
You go in person and meet the people there. That was part of the search too. And there were a few campus placement opportunities too, where we and a few folks from other colleges would go to one place, and companies would come there. That's
job
how
fair. Was it like a job fair?
Job fair kind of, yes. That's how I got my first internship and the job at a job fair.
And the number must be quite less, no? Like the batch, like your batch, the number will be quite less compared to what we have here.
Yes. It
Graduating.
Was, so my class had 18 people.
We are here around, like the number is in 3 digits, so cutthroat competition. Yes.
I mean, it's well, it's also more fun when there are more people.
Yeah.
So I don't get to have the same fun that you get to have right now. So
it's
you
like
can't complain about
that
the numbers.
feeling of being secure is also not so good sometimes. Like you need to be secure about getting a job. That's what motivates.
Yes.
Yeah. During your undergraduate days, subjects which you were preferably inclined to, we'd like to know that. And how did you go about that whole data structure and everything, that phase?
Yeah. So data structures and algorithms is still huge. It started in college.
Yeah.
And even today, I still read about data structures and algorithms.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's even so when I interview candidates, for example, I need to learn even more about the technology, because now I'm going to ask questions on it. So I want to be sure, things like that.
Yeah.
So that learning process is still happening, and it is still revolving around data structures and algorithms. And one thing I want to simplify there is, when I say data structures and algorithms, it is literally the basic ones.
Yeah.
But you really have to know how to use them, and that has been the focus ever since. So a favorite subjects were, I loved any subject where where programming was involved. So that was even hardware programming, VIIT software programming. I loved both equally.
Yeah.
anything that had hard logic,
Hmm.
I would love it. And within software, I was more interested in optimizing resources.
Mhm.
So this is the part of computer science which tries to, let's say something is working, but how do you make it better? Now, when we say better, it can mean make it use less resources,
Yeah.
because if you do that, then companies save a lot of money.
Right.
Uh, something is working correctly, but there's a chance that it may happen even quicker. So how do we optimize for time?
Yeah.
Things like those. So there were those kind of subjects too. We had, I think, principles of compiler design,
Yeah.
um, and the few topics that were around memory organization.
Yeah.
Those
Operating
were my
system.
favorite.
Yeah.
Operating systems, yes, operating
Computer
systems. It's
architecture.
also, yes, yes. I remember I took the same course in masters too again,
Okay.
and it was, I was very curious. I have read so much about this in engineering. I really want to know what's next, and I was surprised. I was like, I saw what was next, and it was amazing. Enjoyed every single lecture, every single day of it. It was, I was interning at the same time, and I was doing that during my summer,
Right.
some summer semester.
Yeah.
So I used to intern during the day, and in the evening I used to
Yeah.
get to the class, attend the class, and study for it. And I never felt tired. I could just keep doing that forever because there was dense information in those lectures,
Right.
extremely dense, and you cannot miss a word. You
And
cannot miss a word.
especially, that phase, that there's this one phase where, let's say if we are two bouncing on two different things at a time, like say internship and this, and there's this one synchronized phase where what you learned, you are applying that exactly. That is that one
Yes,
eureka moment that I like, at least personally.
yes, yes,
One
yes,
eureka,
yes.
like it's like paid off.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and the good thing is if you stay in software, you will have many more of those. I'm pretty sure.
Rightly said.
Um, yeah, it's coming back to the own thing, the previous thing where we feel like the software that is happening in India is kind of follows what happens outside.
Yeah.
It's I wish we could break that myth. That is not true.
Yeah.
We just need to change our mindset there,
Mhm.
because the same data structures that you use there are also used here. You know,
Okay.
and if you can look at a software, break it down into few data structures, you should be able to recreate in India as well.
Exactly.
Now, but something to consider there is what we try. The usually thing that happens is in India, a follow-up misconception of that is also if we build the same thing that US is building, it will work in India. For example, try to build a social network, for
Yeah.
example. I feel like that's not where India should put efforts in, because India does not need a social network. India is already good socially.
Yeah.
It's
It's
very,
closely connected.
India is very social. Exactly, it's super close connected. So coming up with any social media in India, I think has limited value. So that state copying, if that can be avoided, but just continue to innovate, I think that's best for India.
Exactly.
And there are a few startups that I am in loose touch with who are working on very interesting things in India
Okay.
around fintech. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Very interesting things happening.
Exactly. And a lot of technology is booming up too here now. Like the
Yes,
crypto blockchain is booming up. There are a lot of blockchain startups
absolutely,
also coming up. So we have a lot of opportunities. Hope so. Uh,
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah. How did you cope up with peer pressure? Because during the placement season, at least here, rightly so, because of the population also, we have 400, 500 people at once. So how do you cope up with that? Especially like when you make a choice, like let's say software engineering, or let's say some people here, make a, like nowadays, I'll tell you, there are a lot of people who are categorizing themselves and applying for peculiar jobs. Like if I have done projects in UI UX, I'll apply only for UI UX jobs. But then there's
Mhm.
again that fear that if I choose a specialized course, it won't work out. That uncertainty, that whole negative qualities, let's say, about oneself, imposter syndrome, that I don't think I can do, uh, and the peer pressure. How did you cope up with that?
Yeah, the way to cope up with peer pressure is to learn from the peers you think are best.
Absolutely.
And if you have peer pressure, if it is because of competence, then it's a good thing because you know what to improve on.
Right.
And so one thing that has helped me a lot is a lot of my friends were also super interested in computers and engineering.
Right.
And we used to talk about it for hours together. So that helps too. It helps you make it part of your language, uh, and those things start mattering eventually.
Yeah.
It starts the same way, but as you grow further along in your career, these things also start coming back.
Exactly. And plus, like most of my friends at least, they get I don't know, burdened by this peer pressure that he's better and I'm not, instead of improving themselves. So
So I think that goes back to your previous point, where some people also have some specialization, right?
yeah.
For example, I kind of specialized myself into iOS.
Yeah.
Right. That was a hard choice that I made. Now that's good and bad. It's good for general people because now people flow towards what they want, and they don't affect other traffic.
Yeah.
So if the important thing there is to, yes, it's all software at the end of the day, but within software there is a huge world of components.
Yeah.
Which one of those you enjoy working on is something you have to be very clear about.
Right.
And then when you want to make that choice between options, use that, because you want to keep learning and you want to keep having fun with what you're working on. If both these things match, and of course the pay is good, I think that's a good criteria enough.
Yeah.
One thing to get out of is also, no job is your last job, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, no opportunity is your last opportunity.
Right.
There will always be more. There are millions of opportunities floating around.
Yeah.
It's just applying the right filters and being persistent for a few days, right? Those two things can take you a long way in that. Just don't think about, I mean, peer pressure. Yes, there is that thing. Now, but my approach there usually is, if it's because of competence, then your best chance is to learn from them.
Yeah.
And then you won't have the pressure, because then you will be equal.
Yeah.
So that's the best approach, I would say.
And should one focus on pay more? Basically, there's this thing that I want this much package. I would not compromise on my package.
Right.
At the start, I think at the start, I have friends, I have certain friends who are like, we need this much package, otherwise you're not applying. It's not, no question. We deserve the best.
Right.
What's that? Would you like to say on something on that? Pay versus your.
I mean, it's so yeah. I want to say I understand both sides in it, because at the end of the day, you do not want to work for free.
Right.
And I see the interest in trying to get more. It's 100%. It should be there. However, just feeling so makes zero difference. Like, the market does not really care about what you think. Right? It's like that.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen is you have to be available for the right opportunities, and the opportunity has to come to you.
Yeah.
There is one part of that you can control, and irrespective of what someone thinks. So it doesn't matter. You just have to be open to the opportunities and then let the market do its thing. Aside of that, again, it is also important to know the market well. And on that scale, if you have a clear feeling that your pay does not meet the market pay, then you have a strong argument there. Oh, you know what? Now I can say, but it is always relative. It's always relative, and I have never made that in all my interviews, in all my recruitment interviews. And this was something that my recent recruiters, whenever I interviewed last time, appreciated a lot. And they were like, we have talked for a few hours and you have not talked about money at all.
Yeah.
So it's kind of something that, yes, is important, but if you are getting paid for something you don't like, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, right.
So and again, just keep reminding yourself, it's not your first job. It's not your first job. So learning and having fun is more important. Money will happen. Yes, and just trying hard for money is not the way. That's something I can guarantee, and that does not work. You just have to wait for it.
Exactly. With time, it will come.
With time, it will come. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just like to take one audience question now, because this seemed important here. There's a question from Atharva who says that what was your interview experience? What topics were asked to you for DSA, like data structures, OS projects? Did they require you to have a certain experience in some technology, or did they just look for your problem solving capability? I guess this is for Google. Yeah.
Yeah. So Google here has a very normal process, which is very standard here, and that involves applying and making the application or getting a referral.
Yeah.
Either of them works. In my case, I applied, and I got a response from the recruiter the next day.
Okay.
Because they were looking for iOS, and I had applied for iOS. But in most cases, the process is there will be about 5 to 7 interviews, and all of them for new grads will focus on data structures and algorithms.
Yeah.
And every question, these are typical questions that you would find on lead code. The lead code is the best example. And you would pretty much write your algorithm. The only difference there is you don't have access to a compiler, and you can't run the code. You don't have syntax helpers. So you basically write everything. And the focus is more on not getting the right answer, but being able to communicate that to the interviewer. They appreciate communication the most. Your code can be wrong, but if you know where it is wrong and you know how to correct it, you're good. There's no marks for syntax mistakes and all. Nothing. You have to focus hard on hardcore algorithms, the complexities, time complexity and space complexity, and some things like testing for edge cases, and writing tests in some cases. This is like the definitive flow for each interview. And so they do 5 or 7 of these. And then it's about a few months of, let's say, 1 to 2 months of process. There is team matching that needs to happen. If you are matched with a team, then they give you the offer.
Okay.
So that's like the overall process at Google.
Okay. I hope that answers your question. The next question is any past mistakes of yours, which an average engineering student should be beware of at this stage?
Few, actually, many. Many mistakes. I can really make a list of mistakes, and the good thing is mistakes don't do anything to you except to teach you something, right?
Yeah.
And there have been mistakes, few mistakes where I was confused about what to do. And the mistake there is nothing else but losing faith in the system. You have to trust the system and go along with it.
Right.
And part of the system is hiccups, and so I was always ready for that probability. Nothing is going to happen in the first go. You have to try anything at least 3-4 times, feel at it in 3-4 ways, learn how to do it, and then it happens. So it was more of being ready for that process. And with that, you don't plan the future. You just wait for the opportunity to come to you, and then take it as it comes to you.
you didn't have a proper layout, did you? About your, that I'll do this at this age, by this I'll do this. Did you have any like a
The no, I never had a proper layout. But one thing that was common and I wanted to stay constant in life was um, engineering. Like I genuinely love engineering. Even today, if I'm writing any code, I enjoy it just as much as I enjoyed it in college or even in school.
Yeah.
So that thing I have followed. That's the one rule I don't break.
Yeah.
Do not do anything that is not fun.
Yeah.
It does not work. It doesn't give you anything.
Yeah. So let's just take questions from the audience. What is your suggestion on preparation for Google for recent graduate students? This is asked by Sunil B. What is your suggestion for the preparation for Google for recent graduate students, like if they are trying to apply? Let's see.
Right. So specifically at Google, now this is not specific to Google, but any of the Bay Area companies, typically what they want to, if it's a new grad, it's different for a new grad and someone who has a few years of experience. For new grads, it will be the process that I mentioned.
Yeah, 5 to 7 rounds.
Yeah, and all of them will be pure data science, data structures and algorithms.
Yeah.
So a few, tips there, not really tips, but some things that I have learned in interviews is it's literally more about the conversation than the actual code.
Yeah.
And I want to say that to the point where your code can actually be incorrect. It doesn't matter as long as you have a good conversation with the interviewer. And that it doesn't change anything, but if you just have that feeling, it's going to calm you down in the interviews too.
Yeah.
Apart from that, the preparation is very standard. Use lead code, get the subscription. It's totally worth it. You get sorted questions, practice those. And specifically with those kind of questions, a few things to do is you can break down the questions in a few sets. For example, arrays and strings, maps, sets, and there's a DP, sure, graphs. Yeah, exactly. So you mix the sections and you make sure that you solve some questions from each section and you cover all those sections together. So there are some other websites that can help you with that. There is interviewbit.com that I have used. Very good website made by an Indian team, I think, in the Bay Area. There's that. The lead code membership is very helpful. Mock interviews, super helpful. Those help the most. Keep yourself timed. But the most important thing I would say there is, as much as code is important, more important part is communicating your intention and your internal thought process, because that's what they really want to know. And I say that very confidently because I've seen some interviews being rated, and there's absolutely no discussion about syntax errors or bad language in the code. It's all about what did they communicate and what's their thought process. So when you focus on, when you are looking at, for example, that do like mock interviews where you take a question, you time yourself, and you actually follow the steps. Like you come up with the algo, write pseudocode, write full code, test it, and get that rhythm. Once you are in that rhythm, you'll someday you'll be at a point where, okay, now any question that comes to my way, if not able to write code for it, I will be able to decompose it and have a conversation with the interviewer. Once you get that confident, then you can just start applying to all the places and roles.
Exactly.
I would say give yourself like a month or a month and a half to 2 months dedicated time to prepare for interviews whenever you want to interview.
The next question being that our college this year has started a specialization course. All right, there are a few specialization courses like undergraduate in artificial intelligence, undergraduate in data sciences. So there's a dilemma amongst people that will we be able to get the right job after we complete our 4 years of engineering? So basically, I guess the question is, do these specialized courses land you up in a very good job?
The straight answer there is yes. It does open more doors for you because there are so many IT jobs that within IT jobs now you have to start thinking about sections in it.
Right.
So there is a class of data science engineers and there is a class of AI engineers. That's for sure. Whether to do the specialization or not, I would say you have to ask yourself if you can study that domain for the next 15 years of your life. Because it's not something that you take once and let it go. If you want to, let's say, do something in AI or the field of data science, it's going to take a few years of contribution. So if you're up for that, then you can base your career decisions around that. But if that's not the case, then if that's not the case and you're like me, I'm also like I'm more of a generalist than a specialized software person, right? And so I can apply to a certain type of jobs, but not all.
Yeah.
Someone who's specialized in data science will be able to apply to those kind of jobs. So there is that shift in market for sure. But it doesn't prevent you from getting a job, or it doesn't really enable you in any way. It just helps you decide, make a choice.
Sunil, your question answered, I guess. I'm a final engineering student. How to join Google? That's the question.
Yeah. I mean, how to like just apply, that's it's apply and the recruiter takes it from there. It's literally that.
Yeah.
Just if you feel prepared, if you feel you're ready for it, just apply and see where you land. You will hear a lot of people worrying about getting referrals. I don't think those help. I never bothered about those. If you like a role, just apply and go for it.
Yeah.
Just make sure that your profile is set up correctly for them to match you to the right role. Because what's going to happen is, if your profile is too generic and it doesn't match any profile exactly, they will kind of park your application and revisit you in a few months.
Yeah.
Versus if you make your resume and your candidacy very clear that you are looking for these kind of roles, then it's going to be faster.
Exactly.
So how to join? If you feel you're ready, if you feel you're prepared for the interviews, find a role and just hit apply.
Yeah.
If you're sure, more than sure, send me an email. I can get a referral, but it only helps so much. It's more about the application and your candidacy matching the right profile.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just feel free to apply.
Yeah, there are listings on LinkedIn, Sunil. Like I applied twice, I got rejected. That's a different story. But then, yeah, there are a lot of.
It's part of it. So I didn't get it in Google with my first interview. I had to apply twice.
Yeah.
For the first two, they didn't. They weren't happy with my performance, and for the last one, it just somehow I cleared the bar.
Yeah, I had applied for product security engineer, but I couldn't get through because it needs kind of a certain amount of experience, which I didn't have. Yeah. And the next question is, many of the YouTubers or even the staff usually say that so and so language is outdated. Let's say like PHP. and that a language like Node, JavaScript is in the big sector. So don't use the latter. Don't use the former. Use the latter. So do you also think that it is worth working on a project with such language which are considered to be outdated instead of the college?
About languages, I have a very extreme perspective on it. I think your approach should be very language agnostic.
Mhm.
Um, you'll find a lot of blogs saying PHP is dead,
Yeah.
but at the same time, still I think about 60 to 70% of internet uses PHP,
Yes.
and it's not gonna go away. So just my best advice there is to keep yourself agnostic about frameworks and languages and stacks.
Yeah.
You want to focus around being able to build the solution and then give it whatever it needs. um, yeah, I mean, is there something specific that you want to discover about it, or go into about it?
It's like ABC is outdated, but so how are you going to learn your words? So I guess
Yeah,
you
I
need to
mean, there
learn.
are some things which, just my 2 cents around it is, there are stay away from buzzwords. When you say AI, for example, AI or machine learning, there are it's not. It feels like rocket science, where it's not, right? Um, but again, once you get into the serious depths of it, everything becomes more complex. But until then, stay away from the buzzwords and focus on the application part of it. Like,
Yeah.
yes, cool, you can be the next AI engineer, but what are you trying to do with it is more important than just knowing the technology. Because to be honest, as when I joined the industry, especially at Google, there are people who know 100 times more than anyone else, everyone, right? Because everyone is an expert in their field, and there will be people who have worked on frameworks for years. Uh, so you don't really want to try to learn everything. See what interests you and keep carving out the way. AI and data science, machine learning are great buzzwords, but they won't really help you in your career directly. They are good to discuss concepts and all, but what you want to focus on is having dead clear fundamentals. Those will take you much long way than focusing on AI or ML or anything specific. So language wise, go with any language that you love. There will be some language that you naturally feel like reading more or writing more code in. For me, it's C++. I enjoy that the most, but unfortunately, I cannot use that a lot. I have to use Objective-C. And I see that all the new iOS folks are learning Swift now. Now, is it worth learning that language? I don't think so. Unless the current language that you're working in prevents you from doing something, don't leave the language. Even if it's PHP, it could be any language. As long as you feel you can express your algorithms in it, it's good for learning. Just the industry wise and interview wise, it's best to be fluent in either one of, I would say, Java, C++, and Python. One of these three. Other Again, like as I think I clearly think no language, no stack is ever dead. However, the industry prefers some of those over others, and that's true up to a certain extent. For example, Swift, it's hard to find interviewers who can interview in Swift. But Objective-C is very easy to find. So there are those considerations, but overall, your approach in computers should be language agnostic, and try to think about what's happening on the machine when you write whatever you write in your language.
Right.
Yeah.
The next question is, did Google just look for your problem solving skills or also look for experiences in applied technology?
Google specifically, actually, that was one of the things I was stating previously. Um, they were the only company which did not care of me not having any iOS experience. and their only condition was if you are interested and you can crack the interviews, that's enough for us. So they were completely open about me not having any iOS experience, and so I didn't feel like I missed out anything there. It was a very smooth process, and they were very okay with it.
Yeah.
So that I think is also the overall culture at Google. No team will expect you to know everything.
Right.
Most of the learning will happen once you join the team and start interacting with the teammates. But before that, you just need to be sure about data structures and algorithms in one of these three languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything's the specific details the team will teach you. You don't have to worry about it at all.
There's another question. For a first year student, what do you think, which technology would be in demand after 3 years?
Yeah, it's hard to predict, but if I had to go on my intuition, I would say that commerce, fintech around mobile apps is something that is uptrending for sure. That's where I would be interested in. There is also a lot of focus on agriculture and agricultural technology. That's booming a lot. As organic farming and all comes up, there will be a lot of demand for software for it too. And so that is definitely two of the things I would focus on. Apart from that,
It's tough.
I think take a look at what the startups are doing, and if you follow the new startups, you will actually get a better sense of what you have to learn, because then you'll also learn about the new challenges that the startups are facing. And the good thing is the startups are actually already looking at the market.
Yeah.
And so you can base your research on their research.
Right.
Those will tell you what to learn. Go through the job description on the career websites, see what they are asking for, and that's what you want to base your career decisions on the most, I think.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you really want to focus on what you like in computers and stay on it.
Exactly.
That's, I think, is the best strategy. It's gonna keep you. Otherwise, it's a struggle, and it's like how much energy do you want to put in it is a question you can answer for yourself.
Yeah. One last question from my side. It is like usually what happens is if you get a campus placement, there's a bond period of a company, right? So let's say one more question. Yeah, just a connected question. Did you get persistent from the campus, or did you apply off campus?
Yes and no.
Okay. Yeah. No, my question, the principal question being that let's say I get recruited in this company, all right, and now I have to go for my MS, and I've signed a 2-year bond period. So is there any chance I can leave early, or like how did you, because your persistent profile says you worked there for a year and then you went on to Carnegie Mellon. So what's like, how does that go about, because I'm really keen to know about it. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if persistent systems has a bond now.
Generally,
But at my
most companies have a 1 year 1.5 year bond at least these days.
I know. So to be honest, I think if it's 1 year, I think it's fine. You have to work at a place for a year or a year and a half at least to know what's happening around and to exactly know where do you want to go forward from here. So whichever place you start with, remember it's your first job, not your last job.
Exactly.
And as long as the team that you're going to join, you like those people and you can work with those, it's always a good team. You'll get better roles as you start working, and you will also know if MS is the right thing for you. As I said, you might start getting this feeling where you want to now learn more pure computer science. What's a good place for it? You look for options and then decide. But until then, if it's a year of bond, I think it's fine. It's okay to wait 1 year. What to do once you're already in a bond? That's hard to answer because there are legalities involved. Your best bet is to work very smoothly with the HR and your HR department and your manager. In some cases, if they are on your side and you have a good relationship with them, they might be able to let you go off earlier. So that has worked too. I've seen that happen in some cases.
And did you give a GRE did you prepare for a GRE part-time while you were working?
Yes, but I personally took a break for a month to prepare for it.
And what resources did you use then?
I used most of the online free tests. And these would be, one was Princeton, one was, I think Howard has some, there are some universities and some GRE, the org approved websites that you can go to for help. And they offer 1 or 2 practice tests for free. So I went to all the services and practiced on all the free tests. So that is one resource I used heavily. Secondly is also the mock tests in the test centers in around Pune and Mumbai. Pune mostly, Oka Academy, I think. They have tests, online tests. Those I use those. Apart from that, I was struggling at the beginning with the words and vocabulary because I never worked on those. And I knew how I learn words, so I had made my own application to help me with learning words. And that was something I did because I like programming, so I made that tool and I was using that for vocab. So those were the few resources.
How much time did it take? Like, what was the prep period that you had for your GRE? How much time?
I gave it. I started about 2.5 months before the GRE. I started actively. I mean, scheduled preparation. That was about 2.5 months. The last 1 month was a break, where I was actually on leave and I was studying full time. So that was the last 20 days. But before that, for 2 months, I was preparing part time. I would give it, let's say, I didn't time it, but I would go chapter wise. I would say this chapter today, and I would finish with that at the end of the day. So yeah, overall, I think 2 to 3 months, out of which 1 month was full time.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we are done with all of the questions covered up, and all of my questions, all of the audience's questions, and everything. So yeah, Rutuja, over to you.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, so that was a very great and interesting session. Hope that all of the attendees enjoyed it.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for this. I'm equally happy to connect with everyone. It's always great to talk to people from VIIT, and it's always a good feeling.
It was seriously very inspiring because the title itself is from VIIT to Google. So it like we all felt that we all can go there. We can all achieve it. It's not that hard.
It's not actually. Yeah. I mean, that's maybe that's the myth that I should have said is to be answered. It's not at all hard, but the only one thing you have to be is consistent in what you like, and if you like it enough, it's not at all hard. That I can guarantee for sure. It's not hard.
Is there anything you want to say to our students?
Um, well, no tips, and I don't really have experience points. I'm not that experienced anyways, just been 7 8 years in the industry. um, from a few things that I've learned recently is, and I would love to share those because I want you all to know those in advance, is that technology is great to learn, but it is ultimately people who drive technology and people who use technology. So when you try to understand technology and learn technology, always learn it from the people's point of view, at least the user's point of view. Not only it helps you design better, but it is what you make money for. Um, no matter how much you enjoy writing code or engineering, by itself, engineering does not make money. It's only when whatever you engineer helps people save time or do things better, that's when you start earning money for it. And I say that also because that's the mindset you want to go into when you go into companies too, is not just say that you are a great engineer, but also be able to come up with applications for the technology that you are good in. Um, the kind of problems you can solve using the technology. If it's a diverse set of problems, people will like you. So always try to find more challenging things to do in engineering, and try to implement harder things. And keep challenging yourself until you just end up in a place where you feel okay. Now you're there. Until then, don't stop. Just keep learning and keep keep having fun with things you like. It should not get boring. If it gets boring, you will feel like giving up. So one thing to remember is just follow your heart, really follow your heart, and do things only when you love them. Um, yeah, that's just my 2 cents there.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank you, sir, on behalf of Alumni Association VIIT, for contributing your valuable time and providing your guidance to us. It was an insightful session, and I'm sure we all enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Special thanks to all the participants for attending the session and making it successful and interactive. It was great talking with you. On the note, we bid our adieu. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.